Hello everyone, I'm here today with a flip-through video. This is Dublin, part 2. So where I left off was at City Hall. Where I'm picking up with part 2 is at Christchurch Cathedral. So I'm starting out this second half with a brochure here, and all I did was add a sticker there. This is still fully able to be viewed. If you want to see any of the information, you can do that. And then I utilized the back to save space by putting 2 photos on there. And then I added in some wood veneer, a cork embellishment that I made myself. I just punched it to the size I wanted and then stamped that. Just a little phrase, pretty easy. And because this had a little purple, I went with a little purple over here too. These don't necessarily need to match, but you know, any chance to use purple, I'll do it in scrapbooking because you don't see it a lot. So I had these orchid colored embellishments here, and I figured I'll use those, and then the stars on the wood veneer were just a really good match, so I went with that. And then I wanted to showcase more of the outside architecture because it is a beautiful building. So I have that here. I went with a full 6x8 photo for that so I could get most of it in, not all, but most of it is in there. Some wood veneer, puffy sticker, and then over here I just happened to have this card too that I found that I felt like the greens matched well, and then it had yellow to go with the puffy sticker, and it was spring, and this made me feel like spring, so I decided to use it. And then this is just a half-page protector, and really all it is I literally cut off the other part, and I have done that a few times. Part of me finds it hard to do because I feel like I'm wasting the page protector. But when this is really all I need, I don't need a full page. I don't want to just use a full page and put extra junk in there just because I need to fill space. I want my layouts to mean something and to be used well. And so I decided I'm okay with cutting that off and just using 2 slots on each side if that's all I need. On the other side here, just some more shots on the exterior, and then I moved inside. And I like this layout because I not only got to use a wood veneer, but it was blank, so I got to stamp on it and then put in some little embellishments here that match the background. And I have pretty much every tone going here: silver, gold, and a copper. And then I have this layout showing all of these intricate patterns. The floor in there is kind of crazy, in a good way though. I mean, it's so lovely, but it's a lot to take in visually. So if you've never been there and you're planning to go, just prepare yourself. It's a lot to look at, and take your time. Don't rush through there because you want to be able to see all of these intricate details. It's part of its beauty. It's part of why you're going, is to look at all this and figure out what story are they depicting here. So just prepare yourself for that if you go. And because these were so busy, I didn't want to do a whole lot with the card. So I just kept it pretty simple, put on the little asterisk there, and then did my journaling. And then this is actually a postcard that I picked up. And I thought, well, that's better than any shot I could take. And I love that it actually says the name of the cathedral and that it's in Dublin. So I used it. And then this is just a single pager here, but I wanted to use this paper. And I'm so glad that I finally got to use it here. I think it's just called Mosaic, maybe. And I think, if I remember right, it's from Stampin' Up. I don't have any idea if they still sell it or not, but I think that's who makes it. And I had this and thought, given the patterns in the floor, it was somewhat appropriate. So I used it here, and I was able to find some phrase labels here that worked with the colors. So it worked out well. And then, oh, this one. If you watch the process video on this, it took me a while to figure out how to do this, and 2x2 squares are always a struggle for me. Well, this is a lot of 2x2 squares, and I had to make them match. Like with the sequins, I had to make it match on both sides because it shows through, obviously. So that was a trick too, figuring out what was going to match, what was going to work well with all these photos. Luckily, I was able to find sequins in my stash that worked, and so I was able to do that pocket. It matched everything here. I found the circle elements from Allie Edwards. Colors matched. The phrases worked. It was all good. So in the end, it came together, but it definitely was a challenge. And then here, these were just general shots around the upper area of the church. And then this was the crypt area. And I didn't even know for sure if this was going to be open when I went. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It was open. And so I was able to see everything down there, which was really cool. So look at some of these treasures they have in their collection as part of what the church owns. And again, just got lucky that they used purple here, so I was able to work in some more purple with things that I had in my stash. On this particular day, Christchurch was the last thing that I did in terms of sightseeing. So after that, it was just going around the city a little bit, taking some random snapshots, and loving the architecture. Of course, I loved that this had the date on the bridge because it's so old. And then I went back to my hotel. I had already dropped off my bags, but I went back to actually just relax for a while, figure out what my evening was going to be, since I didn't know. When I travel alone, I tend not to go out too late at night by myself. And it's not that I don't feel safe in Dublin. I feel like Dublin is a very safe city. It's just caution, abundance of caution on my part. And I was also having to do work every day when I was gone. And so part of that evening was, hey, once, my sightseeing is done, I can get some work done in the evening and cover all my bases. So it was back to the hotel, and I just included that in here too, so you could see like the layout of the hotel. And then once again, to save space, I used the back. I put a full photo on there that was about 4x6, maybe slightly smaller, that showed my hotel room. This is what I was looking at when I came in. It was so pretty that I really enjoyed it. And then again, here's another insert that's just the two. I did put a flip on the back and a flip here. So I fit in a lot of photos on just this. Now, could I have gone a full page? Probably for this one. But I had this as an extra. I'd planned it for something else and didn't use it. And I felt like, okay, if I cut off the side, I need to use this for something. I can't just let it sit around. So it worked well here. And so I decided to just put on the flip because I didn't want this to be like the first thing you see when you look at this layout is a bathtub. That's kind of weird. But I wanted to be able to at least reference it and tell the story that I was so excited to find that bathtub. So there it is. And then on this side, this was my dinner. And it just happens I have two food layouts next to each other because this was dinner. And all I did after that was go back to the room and eat. And then my next thing was eating again for breakfast. So like I said, I have a flip here as well. I included my receipt and just a little bit of stamping there. Talked about that. And then here's just my breakfast as I'm ready to start the day. This was super easy. All I did was add some chipboard, a little label I had that worked in the color I wanted, some stamping here. That's it. I like to keep it simple when I can. I don't like to overdo anything. And I just didn't feel like this layout needed anything more than that. So now this was a Friday at this point. And so after my breakfast, I wanted to go out and start my day. And right down the street from my hotel was the Remembrance Garden. And that was on my list of things to see because I did not see it the last time I was in Dublin. So I wanted to go over there, and it was a perfect starting point since it was so close. And then the hop-on, hop-off bus picks up right across the street from it. So really, it was perfect. I didn't quite realize all of that when I booked my hotel, but it worked out that way, and I'm happy that it did because it made it really convenient to get around to everything I wanted to fit in that day. So here you can just see the sign out front. I used a little chipboard. Found this card that matched all these colors. And then I had this. This is super old. I think this is Simple Stories from, it's at least 5 years old, pretty sure. But there was one for every month, and I just had this sitting around. And I thought, okay, well, that works with what I've got here, the green from the garden. So I used that. I tucked in some little leaves there. I really like the way that turned out. It's pretty simple and didn't take a huge amount of thought necessarily, but I like the way it turned out. And then this is still part of the garden, but I wanted to showcase the mosaic tile that is on the reflecting pool there. And I told the story of what this means because that was important to me. I wanted to make sure that I got that journaling in there. So after I had spent quite a bit of time in the garden, it was off to my next stop, and that would be St. Patrick's Cathedral. And really that was the only other thing I absolutely wanted to do that day. And I knew I would spend a lot of time there. And so I thought, well, I don't want to be rushed. So I'll go kind of late morning and make sure that I have ample time. So this is the Brochure and Map. It folds out. So again, you can still see everything here. You can read about it for anybody who wants to. So I didn't sacrifice any of the info, but I still made it pretty because on the back, I took a bookmark that I bought in the gift shop and it used that as a design element and then just built this around it. And I do have a process video on this one if I'm not mistaken. So you can watch that as well. And then over here, again, like Christchurch, I wanted to make sure I got the outside view because it's gorgeous. And so that's St. Patrick's from the outside. More mosaic themed paper. You can kind of tell that when I see that in something, I like it. And so I couldn't pass up this paper when I bought it, and I was finally able to use it. And then because the inside is so lovely, I wanted to make sure that I had a full 6x8 photo here. And originally I only had this phrase on there, and then I remembered that I had a sticker sheet that was all things specific to Dublin, and this was on there. And I thought, well, I have to use it. It's black, it matches everything. So I put the sticker on there as well. And then on this side, again, I got lucky that I was able to work in some purple because you can see it in just little spots here around in the stained glass and things. Then here it shows up quite a bit more. So I took that as an opportunity to work that purple in there again. And it just happened that I had a great card that would work for it. And so I just put in a quotation there that was from St. Patrick himself. And I figured that was pretty appropriate. And then here, just more pictures from around the cathedral, different elements. Again, the floors there are pretty good too. If you are like me and you have a thing with floors like this, you would love both of these, Christchurch and St. Patrick's. So do both. Just did a journaling there. And then here again is another bookmark. I bought them at the same time. This one though I wanted to keep intact. The only thing I did was I took off a little tag that was on it that I didn't like. It kept getting in the way, but I wanted to keep the tassel on there. I just think it also adds a nice visual element. And then it's clear, you know, this was obviously a bookmark. It came like that. And then I didn't do anything to the back so that you could actually read what's on there. And then it all matches the sequins that I chose as well. So I thought that came together as a nice insert as an extra element. On this side, I'm just looking around at some other unique features that are found in St. Patrick's. Jonathan Swift is associated with the church. He actually worked there for quite a while. And so that's what's on the floor here. It's a little hard to see in the photo, but it has his name on it. And it's just an honor to him since he had ties to the cathedral. And of course, they're flying the Irish flag in there. And so I wanted to have something that matched. And then after St. Patrick's, I actually went back to the hotel, picked up my bag, and then I was on my way to the ferry. And I really probably allowed way more time than I needed to get myself to the ferry, but I didn't want to have any snafus or any chance that I would miss it. So I could have stayed at St. Patrick's maybe a little longer, but that's okay. So what I did here was I decided to use my pass that was from the Hop On Hop Off bus and just use that as a design element. So that's what you're seeing here. And then this is what you see when you approach the docks where the ferry leaves at the terminal. And so I thought that was interesting because you don't see that too often. If you don't live in a city that has a harbor or has water like that, you don't get to see that every day. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then this is my ticket for the special express bus that you can take that picks up at only 2 stops in the city, and then it takes you right to the ferry terminal. So I wanted to have that in there, and it's only €3.50. I mean, that's not bad, or €3.50, sorry, not cents. Can you tell I'm American? So I wanted to put that in there. And then over here, I had never been on a ferry like this. I've been on ferries before, but never this fancy. This is almost like a cruise ship. It's that big, it's that nice. All the other ferries I've been on have been pretty stripped down, pretty bare bones. So this was like the lap of luxury to me. So I wanted to showcase that and how beautiful the ship was. And then there's my seat reservation. I actually did book a reserved seat in the Hooga Lounge. And that just means you get an assigned seat, and that particular lounge is a quiet lounge. So you can't do excessive talking. You can't be on your phone. You can work in there. And if they have anything on the TV, it's very, very low or it's just muted. But it's supposed to be a relaxing space that's quiet, away from the hustle and bustle of the rest of the ferry. And it was totally worth it. I had to pay a couple extra euros, but it was totally worth it. Or pounds. Did I pay in pounds? This says my drinks I paid in pounds. You can see my drinks there. I had some gin and tonics while on board. It was a couple hours, about 3 to 3.5 hour crossing. So I wanted to make sure that I was well hydrated. And then this is just what it was like on board. And so I was talking a little bit about that. This is a view. You can leave the lounge, obviously go out and look, and you can actually walk on the deck if you want. I did later. This is actually through a window here. But look at how gorgeous it was that day. We really had perfect weather, smooth sailing the whole way. It was great. And then here's another picture with just the half page protector showing the sign for the lounge. And that's what it looked like on the inside. I think there were only a total of 5 of us who had booked chairs in here. And we were all sat away from each other. So it was just so nice, so enjoyable. We were friendly. We said hi to each other, but otherwise it was quiet. And I really enjoyed that. So if you're ever taking the ferry from Dublin, I highly recommend this. This was on the Stena line, by the way. There are different ferry companies. This was on Stena. And then this is kind of a weird break because this ferry took me to Wales. Wales is a completely different album. So now this is actually when I came back to Dublin because I wanted those all to be in the same album. So I've gone to Wales. I've come back. So this was my evening landing back in Dublin, and I had friends who wanted stuff from the Hard Rock. So I had to go there and wasn't quite sure what all they'd have, but I found this shirt that my daughter had me get. So it's got Freddie Mercury on it. She was excited about that. And then I got a hat for the dad of a friend of mine. So I picked that up as well. And I liked that I had the receipt there. And so I included that in the little flip here. And then it was back to my hotel, and this is the same hotel I stayed at before. And so I knew right where it was, super easy to get there. They remembered me, I remembered them. It was all good. And then what I didn't realize was downstairs in the lower level, there's a great restaurant, and they also do live music. This was right before the COVID lockdowns happened, so they were still doing live music at that time. And I got really lucky that I got to see a performer there, and so there he is. And I tell a little story here about how he played Galway Girl, and that has a very special meaning to me from my first time in Ireland. So I talked about that, and I took that as a sign that Ireland was happy to have me back. And then here are some pictures from my meals, and then the hotel also comped me a free drink, so I had some white wine. It was lovely. And the meal, OMG. It was delicious. As you can see, this was a fig and goat cheese salad. It was fantastic. Rolls were good. My chicken meal with potatoes was good. And I love this huge veneer that I got to use. And I did not paint the wood veneer. It came like that. It was white already. And this was from an Allie Edwards release. I think it was just called Foodie, maybe? Or was this part of her travel release? No, maybe it was travel, since it says eat well, travel often. I think it was in travel. And there were 4 sayings that came with it, and I just loved it. And I knew right away that I wanted to use it for this meal, and I love the way that this layout turned out. And then also from Allie Edwards, she took a trip to Ireland and created this Irish Blessing printout that was free to everybody who took a class from her, and they could use it. And so I printed it out and used that because we actually had this growing up in our house. So it has special meaning just for the Irish factor alone. So I put that in there. And then here is, I took a bus to and from the airport. They didn't have that the first time that I was in Ireland. This is a newer thing that they've started just for airport service. And it is so slick. So if you're going and you think, oh, do I need a car? No, you don't need a car, at least not in Dublin proper. You can take this bus. It'll get you to and from the airport just fine. And it's super easy and relatively inexpensive. And then this is my flight out. I flew Air Canada because I flew through Toronto. And so I just have a picture of my passport and my boarding pass there. And because it was Canadian, I got to have Tim Hortons. We don't have a lot of those in the United States. We're just starting to get them. And so I thought that was fun to do something a little bit different and that was purely Canadian here, obviously. And I have my boarding pass, decided to embellish that so it would match this part of the layout here. And then my last page is just talking about what it feels like at the end of a trip and what that means to me. And so I included that as well. So that is the entire album. As you can see, it's a very chunky, lots of layouts in here. It does not sit flat. As you can see, it pops up a little bit. I don't mind that because when it's on the shelf, that will stay down a little bit better because it'll be wedged in between other albums. And then I also already did the part that goes in the nameplate there, and I can see it's shifting around. So I'm not sure if I need to put some adhesive on the back or what I need to do to kind of keep that straight, but at least it's in there. Half the time I don't do that for years. After I finish an album, I kind of forget. And then after a while I go, oh yeah, I probably should do the title for that. So this time at least I did it and it's in there. So that album is finished. I hope you've enjoyed watching me put this all together and seen the final flip through. Thanks for watching.